long is this going to go on for? Lord, would you rescue me out of this? And I remember I would cry myself to sleep some nights. Psalm 121, I lift my eyes to the hills. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. He will not let your foot slip. I would be eating up this truth, and it'd be like a lifeline to me. And I think that's what birthed the songwriter in me too. Wow. Thinking, okay, songs are a pretty good way of talking to God. Yeah. They're a pretty good way of laying it all out before him. Eugene Peterson reckons about 70% of the content of the Psalms is lament-based. People crying out to God. But that kind of reflects our life sometimes, right? When you can go through the seasons where you feel like, okay, today's just a choice. It's a gut choice. Anyone can sing or worship when things are going well, right, and easy, but who can hang in there when things are tough? And
are you a naturally bubbly, kind of happy person, or was this a real rough time for you? Because you have a real smile on your face right now, and you're obviously over it. God's obviously, real, because you're past all that, and your life is a testimony of that. But by nature, was this was really a rough patch?
Yeah, I don't think actually that's not really my personality. Let's put it like this. I know a lot of people who are a lot brighter optimists than I am, and I want to be a bit more like them for sure. But I think it was just a daily choice. I was like, okay, do I believe today that God is in the midst of this? Like, I can't see him. It's a bit like some of the things, in the whole Joseph story, isn't it? Where he says, what you meant for harm, God meant for good. And there's another point where he calls his son Ephraim. He says, because Ephraim means God made me fruitful in the land of my suffering. And looking back now, I think that would be my story, is that I couldn't see anything good coming out of those moments. My dad dying, taking his own life, and all the questions that come from that, all the other stuff that happened after. At the time, I couldn't see anything good coming out of it, but now I look back and I can see God was so close to me. He was holding me up in that moment, and not only was he doing that, but in the soil of that suffering, he was making for something good to happen later on.
You said something that got my attention. You said that during those times, you always had hope. What was that? Did you think that someday this will change? What was that hope that you had on?
I think a lot of it was songs, honestly. It was me singing truth. In those moments, isn't it funny how songs can go so deep into our hearts and minds and souls? And when they do, if they're written well, they can take truth. Yeah. They can inject joy. They can bring a sense of peace to the situation. They can give a sense of stability. Yeah. And that's what it was for me. I was so connected to worship music by then, and that it wasn't an escape route, but it was more like the best reality check you can ever have. Isn't worship sometimes like the ultimate reality check? Because we've got all our other realities, whatever's going on in your life. But then you come to this one, everything else is breaking and shaking apart. But here's a throne that is immovable. Yeah. Here's a God who never fail or fade. Here's a kingdom that's without end. Here's a word that's not going to let you down. And so, to me, I think when worship is at its very best, it reminds you that not only is the throne room of God a place of reverence, but it's also a place of refuge.
At your core, do you think that you're more of a songwriter or a song performer or singer?
Leader?
I love leading worship. Yeah. Something amazing. The people of God in the presence of God, pouring out the praises of God. There's something amazing about being up the front and getting to watch that happen. Yeah. I love that. But to be honest, the songwriting thing, that I just love doing that. I felt so cool to it
a little bit, because you said a song, as long as it's well written, can bring joy. So what you're saying is poorly written songs won't, is what you're saying.
I've hardly ever heard a terrible song.
I could write you a terrible song, I'm sure you. Yeah.
No, but even some of the songs, you hear, they don't feel unformed, they feel a bit unfinished. You can sometimes hear heart in there, a bit of truth in there. But what I love is when everything comes together. Yeah. Someone's been feeding on the truth of God. They've learned something of how to craft a song.
I'm coming to the conclusion in the first 20 minutes. You're just a nice guy. That's what I understood, because this is, and by the way, we're talking about Matt Redman offering his new CD, Glory Song. It's available we want to move on with your story a little bit. And when you talk, go ahead, Dave.
Well, I am a proponent of worship because I know that changes the atmosphere. And I love to hear a worshiper leader just like you to speak to the people because nothing's going to change your life